Exception number 1 in the National Electrical Code, specifically the 2005 edition, addresses the spacing requirements for communication cables installed alongside power wires. This exception is found in sections 725.55, J 820.133, A2 and 830.133, A2. It's crucial to understand what this exception entails and how it impacts the installation of low-voltage cables such as CAT5, coaxial, and alarm wires in relation to power conductors. The core principle behind exception number 1 is that it permits communication cables to be installed alongside power wires and even within the same drilled holes and stud walls, without adhering to the typical 2-inch spacing requirement that might otherwise be enforced between power and communication cables. This allowance is predicated on the fundamental difference between communication cables and power cables. Communication cables, which carry low voltage signals for data, telephone, or other communication purposes, are not considered to pose the same level of electrical hazard as power cables, which carry higher voltages and currents for supplying electrical power to equipment and devices. The ANSI TIA/EIA-570-1000 999 standard is also relevant in this context. This standard, which focuses on residential telecommunications infrastructure, does not impose a mandatory 2-inch spacing requirement for communication cables when they are installed alongside power wires. This alignment between the National Electrical Code exception and the ANSI TIA/EIA standard provides further clarity and guidance for installers and inspectors alike. In practical terms, this means that when installing CAT5, coaxial, or alarm wires, you are generally permitted to run these cables alongside power wires and through the same holes in stud walls, without maintaining a 2-inch separation. However, it is essential to exercise caution and adhere to other applicable requirements and best practices to ensure a safe and reliable installation. Firstly, always inspect the communication cables for any signs of damage or degradation before installation. Damaged cables can compromise signal integrity and potentially create safety hazards. Secondly, secure the communication cables properly to prevent them from coming into contact with power conductors or sharp edges that could damage the cable insulation. Use appropriate cable ties, clips, or staples to support and secure the cables along their run. Thirdly, avoid running communication cables in excessively high temperature environments, as this can degrade the cable insulation and affect signal performance. Route cables away from heat sources such as lighting fixtures or heating ducts. Fourthly, maintain proper grounding and bonding practices for both the communication cables and the electrical system. This helps to minimize the risk of electrical noise and interference and ensures a safe and reliable installation. Fifthly, consult with a qualified electrical inspector or engineer if you have any questions or concerns about the proper installation of communication cables in relation to power wires. They can provide valuable guidance and ensure that your installation meets all applicable codes and standards. In summary, exception number 1 of the National Electrical Code and the ANSI TIA/EIA-570-1000 999 standard provide allowances for installing communication cables alongside power wires without a mandatory 2-inch spacing requirement. However, it is crucial to adhere to other applicable requirements and best practices to ensure a safe and reliable installation. Always inspect cables, secure them properly, avoid high-temperature environments, maintain proper grounding, and consult with qualified professionals when needed. Understanding the nuances of these codes and standards is essential for anyone involved in electrical or telecommunications installations to ensure safety and compliance. This understanding helps prevent potential hazards and ensures that the systems function effectively and reliably. Always prioritize safety and adherence to regulations when working with electrical and communication systems. Remember that local codes and interpretations may vary, so consulting with local authorities or inspectors is always a good practice to ensure compliance with specific requirements in your area. By following these guidelines, installers can confidently and safely integrate communication cables within electrical systems, optimizing performance and minimizing risks. This careful approach not only ensures compliance but also contributes to the longevity and reliability of both the electrical and communication infrastructures.